victory and the agony of defeat.
Great ball around the corner, Petticini, he beats them all! Junior Polar out wide, bumped away from Trindle, Sharks coming through, none of them can hold this!
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's Tuesday evening, which means it's time for a live edition of the Tip Sheet podcast. I'm your host, John, also known as 4020, joining me to break down everything happening out of Paradise and the greater NRL. It's my good mate, 60s, big fella. Another week's rolled on. It's been a pretty quiet one, despite the backdrop of the Zac Lomax drama or saga or however you want to frame it. But the NRL's rolling on, and yeah, a quiet week for the Eels and the NRL in general, but there's still been some happenings.
Oh, mate, there's been plenty happening when it comes to Parramatta. I think when I had a look at the run sheet, was putting it together, and I thought, I can't believe how much there is for Parramatta. Not so much across the NRL, but just a lot with Parramatta. So, big episode. Maybe it's going to weigh in something like an hour and a half on the Eels and 10 minutes on the NRL, and we won't mind that if it comes up in that fashion, John. Look, I did send you a message about one of our listeners having trouble being able to get into chat. He thinks it might be at his end. Now,
yeah, I was going to say, we've only ever had the one person that's been on the naughty list for the live stream, and that was going way back when, near the start. So, Diggs, if it's an error, you could try. I mean, it's basic tech stuff, isn't it? Logging out, logging back in. With I assume it's your YouTube account there, unless you're using some sort of extension. But yeah, there's no one banned barring that singular individual. So, I say it's on your end, mate.
Yeah. Look. Thanks for having a quick look into that, John. Of course, it wouldn't be a podcast if we didn't say an acknowledgement to our sponsors, without whom we basically wouldn't exist, and that's, of course, Star Partners Real Estate, Auburn, Narellan and Parramatta Leagues Club, the home of the Eels. And just a reminder as well, we spoke about it last week, there's been proposals put forward to roll back the Constitution, taking away things like the right to vote electronically, the right to postal vote, having standards for directors. Can you believe this? People want to remove the standards for directors. You should have received some sort of, if you're a Parramatta Leagues Club member, you should have received an email about that. You can head to the website. They've got Q&As there. We're saying vote no to those proposed changes to the Constitution. You'll also be voting on things like the proposed amalgamation with Pitt Town Community Club. We're voting yes on that, of course, because that's taking the Parramatta group nice and deep into the Hills District as well. So the more that our club grows, the stronger that it gets as well. So just a reminder about those things. Check your email, check the Parramatta Leagues Club website if you're a member, and look out as well for all the voting papers when they are sent your way in the run up to the AGM. John, I don't think there's too much more to go through at this stage. We're probably ready for that stinger.
News team, assemble!
John, almost true to form, we did the news podcast last week, and not the next day, but the day after, the big Lomax news came out.
The best part was we did an offline recording session with Chris Ricketts, and we still missed it. We're on the same day. We were recording with Chris Ricketts, and we still missed it by an hour. So you can't make it up.
But look, it was no surprise really to see that the Eels got on the front foot with Zac Lomax, because they really have to make sure that there is nothing that happens in the way of Lomax signing a contract with the Storm in the interim. There was rumours that he was just going to turn up at in Melbourne gear at their training and just start training with them. The Eels now have court dates for February 12 and 13. The rugby league community has got behind the Eels in a way that I think is almost unprecedented. It's just the way that the Eels have not just been backed, but have been applauded by supporters, by the media for making the stand that they had, and just to say, no, this isn't acceptable to us. No, you can't just come in and sign a player who has a very specific release agreement. And the thing is about that release agreement is that it's central. It's central. The no-compete clause is central to the Eels release agreement. If you take out the no-compete clause, there basically isn't a release agreement. So if by chance they can somehow, and I can't see how it's possible, but if by chance they somehow were able to win against the no-compete clause, then that basically negates that release even exists. So surely then he just comes back to being under contract at the Eels because there is no release. Which
is a hilarious outcome, because then he'd be obliged to report the Parramatta, start training, or he's not fulfilling his contractual obligations, which is a whole separate matter. Courts are always a funny thing when it comes to employment, like law and employment sort of precedent. And I don't know if you saw it, maybe Paul Kent sort of threw in his 2 cents on this one, and he sort of cited the Super League versus ARL incident where they didn't want to pick departing ARL to Super League players at State of Origin level, and the court said, no, you can't do that, but we can't tell you who the best players are to pick for State of Origin. So you can't say it's because they're going that way. So it wasn't a one-to-one comparison, but it was more a case of that the courts tend to be pretty pro-employee, sort of slanted in that regard. But I think the Eels have a good case because no competes are a matter of actual legal precedent. And there are restrictions on what you can do with no competes. So I think we mentioned last podcast that in 2022 there was an amendment to the Australian regulations that you can't put a no-compete clause on an employee that earns less than $175,000 or thereabouts. I might be slightly off on the numbers there, but that there are provisions to protect employees that don't rake in hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of dollars. But Lomax, on his existing NRL contract, is on somewhere between the numbers vary, but it's somewhere between 6 to 750, depending on which media outlet you listen to. So he is well above that threshold. So a no-compete should hold water here, and it's going to be very interesting precedent-wise for the NRL, and it's going to be very interesting because this is more than just we mentioned it, but it's more than just the Lomax saga here. This is a boiling point, a culmination of years on years of both club and players treating contracts like they're worth nothing. And had the Parramatta Eels profited from players breaking their contracts? Absolutely. We're not completely innocent in that regard. But all 17 clubs, 17, still 17 I say, but obviously the Bears haven't broken anyone's contract just yet when we get that expansion, but all the clubs have done it. It's been part of the business, and we're trying to break this cycle now. And that's why I think you're seeing so many clubs standing behind the Eels in solidarity. That this cannot continue. We need to be able to, clubs need to be able to appropriately, strategically plan their future more than a year in advance based on their contract status of a guy that they signed up for 4 years. Like they need to have some, not just foresight, but ability to say, well, Zac Lomax is going to lock down that one position for 4 years, and we're going to build around him. And we're going to have a proportionate amount of our cap assigned there, so we're going to spend less here and some more over there. There's always different checks and balances you're trying to manage in the salary cap, and you can't have players consistently breaking contracts. You can't have clubs trying to incentivize players to break contracts. You can't have player managers. And again, this is something that Kent touched on, but the real, I suppose, malignant or bad faith actors in this, player managers constantly pushing players to break contracts.
Yep. I actually, I think I've spoken to you about this, John, but I had my own instance of being in the Supreme Court in a no-compete clause contract back in a previous life before I was teaching, and I was in an industry where I signed a no-compete clause that if I left the company that I was working for, that I wouldn't go to work for another company in the same industry within a period of 12 months. And I'd been advised that that contract was not enforceable in the courts, and I took up an offer with another company. I had no intention of stealing clients or anything like that, but my employer let me work out my 2 weeks' notice, and I thought everything was sweet. And I was due to start work at the new organisation about a week or so after that, and the day before, or the end of the previous week, I got a delivery by courier of court papers that I was being so I was served, and then a couple of weeks down the track, I'm there with a QC representing me in the Supreme Court in Sydney. And John, I was on all of about $35,000.
Yeah, and that is why the government has put in provisions to protect the average Joe and average Jane in that regard. But players or people like Zac Lomax are not average. They're earning more in a year than most people earn in over a decade. So there's a different set of rules, and that's that is what is going to be what the Eels are sort of building the cornerstone of their case on. But yeah, no compete clauses are a real thing, and the Eels gave him a conditional release on a 4-year contract, 1 year of which had been served, for that explicit opportunity. And I think, again, going back to the press release the Eels put out last week, Craig, it was a very careful wording in there that the floor is open for all other 15 NRL clubs, because obviously the Eels and Parramatta away from 17 gives you the remaining 15, that the Eels will field reasonable offers from any other club, from any other party. There is no bad faith here. The Eels are not trying to restrict Zac Lomax from returning to the NRL per se, but they just want a fair offer. So I think that was again, not a lawyer, but that felt like a careful provision from the Parramatta Eels to say that this is not a restriction of trade, but this is now going to become a transactional affair inside the actual confines of the NRL. So going to be interesting to see how this plays out. I think the Eels have pushed for an expedited judgment here, Craig. So they'll find out pretty briefly if once the court takes place. It won't theoretically, it shouldn't drag out for weeks and months. It should be sort of present both sides and get to a summary judgment one way or the other. But yeah, a lot is hanging on this, and I do wonder if, with the court case being pushed back roughly 2 weeks here, if it gives the time for the NRL to maybe come to the table and help broker an actual reasonable deal, because that is something that the NRL, by that initial leaked report, Craig, they certainly seem to think that a $200,000 transfer fee is fair, which is kind of hard to swallow when Carl Awapu got a $550,000, $500,000 transfer fee from the Bulldogs, and he was a NRL not unknown in terms of as a talent.
But he was a rookie. He was a rookie. NRL debut.
And again, I think the notional concept of transfer fees in the NRL is a farce because they don't help you actually win a title.
No. Look, it's all a matter of and look, the Eels, by the same token, I think in the Eels saying, look, we take this player, this player, this player, they know themselves that the Storm aren't going to release those players. But that's really a statement of saying, look, if you think you can just take this player who was under agreement with the Eels and that there is no compensation for it, well, you're mistaken, because we think it would be the equivalent of you giving us any of these three players.
Yeah, and so, I mean, it's classic bargaining principles too. You start high, get talked down low, and find a common middle ground, or at least that's usually how it works out here. Melbourne seem to think they can have their cake and eat it as well, and I guess they had the NRL on their side at one point, so I don't know. We have a lot to see how this plays out. I did see, was it Scott Whitney up there sort of talking about the concept of maybe negotiating a salary cap exemption as opposed to just getting a player. I don't think that's a terrible idea, Scott. It's just more that that'd be a landmark precedent for the NRL and probably sets some murky grounds maybe for how you establish notional value on a salary cap exemption. But that's something I've actually pitched to you in the past about the idea of when you lose a junior or lose a player that you've developed in the senior levels. The NFL offers you compensatory picks. I do think there could be some sort of framework for salary cap credits when you have a number of players rated from your playing stocks. You can get even if it's only a small amount, like a $50,000 credit on a $500,000 contract, right? Some sort of scaling there. You get some incentive to then keep the next junior that you might lose. But yeah, there's a lot to play out here. Really interesting stuff. Obviously, we're both are not lawyers here, Craig, so we're not abreast of the ins and outs of the situation. I'm sure that both the Eels, who have been represented by Arthur Moses, and then Lomax, who has the Sonny Bill lawyer there, both their legal counsels will be saying, no, we've got a strong case. It'll be up to what particular judge they get and how they interpret the information presented.
Yeah, look, it's hard to imagine that the Eels don't have the winning hand at the moment. And I know that there's...
You're a bit more confident than I am, not because I don't think the Eels are, in principle, the correct party here, but the courts can be an odd thing when it comes to navigating these things.
Well, John, in my own case, it was ruled in my favour that it would have been a restraint of trade to stop me from working in the industry, but I just had to sign an agreement that I wouldn't approach any previous clients for the next 6 months, which I had no intention of doing anyway, and I didn't do even past the 6 months. But I see how anything to do with restraint of trade falls very much towards the employee in these regards. But given that it was a release agreement that was negotiated and signed by Lomax, with having his agent representing him, he had legal advice, it was something that he initiated rather than the Eels. It's hard to see how he can argue that the circumstances have changed for him, but those circumstances weren't of the Eels' doing, nor were they of the rugby league. The rugby league's doing. It's all to do with he made a mistake. He stuffed up.
Yeah, like I said, he was chasing the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow.
Yeah,
the rainbow obviously wasn't there. And
yeah,
and again, this speaks to the wider issue that the NRL don't want to confront right now, is that Lomax has now walked away from 2 contracts. He wants back at Melbourne, but what happens if R360 is back in 18 months? Is he going to walk away from the Melbourne contract? Like, there needs to be an enshrinement of the actual contractual framework here. Like, can players have clauses to get out of contracts? Absolutely. That's going to be on the player managers to be player managers, to find actual legal frameworks for them to get out of a contract in explicit situations. But yeah, we need to start, either we institute a proper trade framework where you can get a player to a different destination when they want to request a trade, and the club that is losing the player gets compensation back in the form of player or salary cap credits, or we actually make these contracts mean something, because it is beyond farcical now where we're at. So
you would think that's the easy part, wouldn't you? The contracts mean something.
Yes, and
you've got a contract, just follow the contract.
And look, that comes down to the fabric of the NRL, doesn't it? And that, as you saw in your personal instance there, you can legally enforce a contract. You can go to court and you can get found to have a no compete clause and whatnot. But in the NRL, they've played very fast and loose, and that is just a part of the playing field inside the NRL. Is that's the environment they've fostered. And I think that you can feel the frustration of the other clubs boiling to the surface here, and I think that's why you're seeing so much bipartisan or polypartisan support for the Eels here, in that you're getting arch rivals and genuine clubs where you wouldn't say there's bad blood, but there's a lot of history with, and they're coming and getting in behind or shoulder to shoulder with the Parramatta Eels here. So yeah, a lot riding this one, a lot to play out here. At the end of the day, it's not really an update, isn't it? It's more the court date's been pushed back to this specific set of dates, on the 12th and the 13th of February. But yeah, we wait with bated breath, and I suppose we do have to breathe in between now and then. It's a couple of weeks, so don't get too red in the face.
John, the next thing I wanted to deal with was actually something you sent to me this afternoon. Was a rumor that was, well, it wasn't even a rumor, but basically a poster in a particular forum has put this long diatribe about all these what can I say, horrid scenarios within the Eels, things that were going on behind the scenes. If you're someone who's read it, then you know what I'm talking about. If you're someone that hasn't read any of it, then let me put your mind at ease. There's no need to read it because it's a whole lot of garbage. It's just complete crap. As soon as I read it, there was a particular part there that I was able to verify straight away as being completely false, just with a single phone call, and I was able to do that almost instantly. And then I sought clarification on the rest of it. And I mean, not that I needed to seek clarification, but it's garbage. I wonder what is the motivations of people to post things like this, especially if the person is supposedly an Eels supporter. But if you've read something that is goes into details about all these behind the scenes problems at the Eels and people that don't get on with each other and low opinions of this person and that person, and just ignore it. It's crap. It's just utter complete crap. And the only thing I would suggest is I would strongly suggest that the moderators on that site just take it down, because it's almost to the point, John, I think, of being slanderous, what I read. So, and probably easily disproved too if we went down that path. But it's So just, if you've read it, just ignore it. I'm not going to go into all the details about it, but what a load of crap. That's all I can say. So that's all I want to touch on with that, John. And speaking of the Eels and the squad, they've just been up in Lennox Head last week. Massive thanks to Leno Eel, who provided a couple of training reports for us.
North Coast correspondent, yep.
Yep, our North Coast correspondent was able to provide some training times for locals. We had locals jumping onto his blogs, his training reports, asking what days and times the Eels were going to be training on the other days in the week. He was able to respond to those straight away. I couldn't thank him more than what I was able to. It's this is great to have the community that we do on the Cumberland Throw, John, where people understand what we try to do as part of the Cumberland Throw, which is be informative for fellow Eels supporters. And when we have our readers, our listeners, that get on board and offer to do these sorts of things for us, it just makes it great for everyone, for all Eel supporters to know what's going on. So our thanks to Leno Eel for that. I know that there was a little bit of an issue from one or two people saying why couldn't the Eels make these big open training sessions and publicise the times and all of that for the locals that are up there. What you don't understand is as soon as the Eels declare that something is an open training session and organise it as such, there's a whole lot of wheels that have to go into motion. They have to make allowances for having people there, have to have security in place. They have to organise times that the players would be there to sign autographs. They have to have the staff there to be able to handle that sort of thing, because if you publicise it, you're going to get a large number of people that turn up there. So it's not as straightforward as just start making an announcement that they're going to be there on this day and this is their open training session. I understand how people feel about that, but it's a big operation to run an open training session, and the Eels didn't have the staff up there to do it. They had the staff to train the Eels and to look after the Eels in from a football perspective, not to be able to handle the many Eels fans that live up on the Northern Rivers. I know people did get there, and I'm glad that people did get there because the players made themselves very available for photos and autographs and a chat after the training session. So don't worry, the people there that were able to turn up, they did get to meet Eels, did get to have photos, had autographs. So I think it was a great success up there. The feedback that I've had is it was a brilliant week for them, and they're back. I think the majority of the players were back from their trip today, and I think their first training session's tomorrow up at Kellyville. So it's back into the grind, as it were, in this countdown to the opening round, well, the trials and then the opening round, John. So
strap yourselves in. It's all gas now, isn't it? It's all downhill to the trials.
Yeah, but something I do want to mention is first of all, there were some former Eels that live not too far away from there, so they called in and were part of the Eels training days there. So we saw photos that the Eels media put up of our good mate David Lydiard.
It's good to see always. Yep.
Yeah, and Troy Campbell. He's another very active member of the BGA that we've had the pleasure of spending some time with. Both him and David Lydiard. Good to see David in his BGA shirt as well, but also Scott Marn. There's a name from the past, from that late 80s, early 90s fullback, and Ben Smith, mate.
How good did the Penguin look?
Archetypal hybrid centre back rower.
He was the man ahead of his time, ahead of his era there. I know Isaiah Yo's the premier centre/back rower of the modern era, but the Penguin played very well. He looked in great shape too. Looked like he could pull on a jersey and maybe help the Eels out. So it was good to see the Penguin.
If they have the like a Masters.
I was about to say, if there's a Masters game, Eels got a couple of good players to pick in there. We've seen Joel Reddy with the BGA. He looks like he's doing all right. So get the Penguin, get ready in there. So there's a few good candidates.
Absolutely. And I should also mention that as part of this Lennox camp, that the Eels have a multicultural celebration that they do where they acknowledge each other's cultural backgrounds and learn a little bit about their teammates, their culture, and really get amongst it and enjoy it. And it's great to see the photos that come out with that, some of the video, Junior Paulo's speech that he had about it. It's it's fantastic stuff, and it all goes towards the bonds that are there within the team and how much they enjoy each other's company and how much they enjoy learning a little bit about each other's culture. So great to see. It's that Lennox Head Camp. We've certainly got ties there with the coaches. Scott Weismantle's from up that way. Nathan Brown's not too far away from there as well, with where he originated from. So there's plenty of connections there with the Eels staff to the Lennox Head area. John, I had it suggested to me that maybe that sort of region, so the broader region there, could be, if the Eels are going to take in the wake of Darwin area,
going to the Northern Coast, I imagine there'll be a little bit of pushback from the Gold Coast Titans, who sort of fall loosely on the south side of the border of some of their catchment, but I think it's a good area. I think it's a very good area for the Eels to stake. It's a rugby, like it is very much rugby league primary in that area, and I think that they would love to have an affiliation with a New South Wales-based squad. So I don't think that's a terrible idea.
And maybe get in early or look to hook in a club like the Sharks, because they were apparently doing a camp there either this week or next week. So, because they've got tremendous facilities up there for this camp. They've got the like the players' quarters are part of the facility up there. So they've got a big gym. They've got the playing fields. They've got the accommodation. It's all there, and they're right on the beach as well. So they couldn't have better facilities for a camp to be held at, and of course a strong supporter base up there. The Eels are taking that game that would normally go to Darwin as we've actually given up a home game for the Magic Round, I believe, this year, John. So we just get the standard number of home games. I think, what is it, 11? That's part of our allocation of home matches. And but if we don't give up a match to Magic Round each year as an alternative to, and I know the Eels have looked at, are there regional areas that would be good to take the game to? I think we just take it there, because to me it's a natural addition to a camp that's held there during the preseason. It looks like that camp's going to be held every year up till from now on. So yes, we move on, John. Fan Day. Who's going to it this Friday?
We've
5 p.m. to 7 p.m.
Seen great turnout in the is it 2 or 3 previous fan engagement days across the preseason. I know there was the Fairfield Showgrounds. There was the Granville, Eric Tweedale, and was there one? There hasn't been one at Kelville yet. Well, there was a Kelville members event.
Yeah, no,
there was a
Kelville
Kelville members event. Yeah, members
appreciation.
So, yeah, we're up to our 4th preseason fan engagement date, and yeah, to take a sort of room temperature or pub test sort of poll in chat. I don't know if anyone's planning to go out there, but to now our home ground. So we're sort of, it's pretty cool, isn't it? They've spread it across pretty much all the relevant facilities that encompass Parramatta fandom between.
Yeah, they didn't. I don't think they did the Eric Tweedale this year, John.
No,
I think
you're right. Yeah.
That was the. I think that was the where they did it at Kellyville for the member appreciation, because I think previous year it was member appreciation at Eric Tweedale.
Gary's looking to get out there on Friday. Good to see. Beacon's going to be out there with the kids. Fantastic. Phil saying next year home game's probably going to be Vegas. Yeah, we haven't really talked about that, but the Eels are due for the trip to Las Vegas. Although there was some reports that the NRL might essentially reset the candidacy list for Vegas with expansion and whatnot here, and they might just open up all teams that have already been there. So who knows what's on the cards there. Phil saying he's also going to be at the fan day and the season. Yeah, well, we're going to talk about the season launch shortly, but yes. Which does coincide with the same venue too, by the way. So it's nice. But Warren says he can't make it. You got an operation. Hope you're okay, mate. Hopefully back for round 3 for Dragons. Well, speedy, steady recovery, mate, and we'll see you there for the Red V, where we have a bit of a grudge match there with Guffer. And I do think the club actually have some plans for the first couple of home games, including that one against the Dragons. So we're not fully privy to that, but there could be some pretty cool shenanigans for the home games at CommBank.
Yeah, John. The interesting thing with the with that fan day at the stadium is, as you mentioned, that it runs into the official season launch. So the players are available from I think 5 p.m. till 6:30 p.m. for meet and greet as part of that fan day, but then they move from there into the function rooms at the stadium, where the official season launch, which is a ticketed affair, is taking place. So the players themselves, they've got a really big commitment that particular day, because they're going from I would imagine from 5 till like 8:30, something like that, interacting with fans at different levels. So people were able to buy tickets to go to the season launch this year, and I think that's a good initiative from the club to make it something where it's not a matter of if you have a certain level of membership that you get a season ticket, that you get a ticket to the season launch, or if you are, in the media or you're a corporate partner that you go to, that the average punter can, if they want to spend the money, buy a ticket to that season launch. And the thing is, my experience with it, in particular last year when I went, was that the players were really, really good with their time with supporters, and it gives an opportunity for you to have, I guess, a unique conversation with different players. I'd encourage people to maybe think outside the square with asking them the sort of questions that everyone else is going to be asking them, even though you might want to hear it from their mouth as well. You can imagine if you're a player and you just get the same questions over and over and over and over again. See if you can come up with something unique for the players, and you might find that you get an interesting conversation with them because they're not thinking of cliched answers. So and look, I found last year to be, spent a chunk of the start of the evening being able to chat to Dylan Brown, because nothing had happened at that stage. He wasn't moving on. It was that nothing had come out about his impending move to Newcastle at that stage. And in having a conversation with him, he started talking about the sorts of things he likes to watch on Instagram, the sorts of stories, which is basically how things are made. And I'm thinking, wow, this is this is a different conversation. I was never going to talk football with Dylan because he just wasn't a talk football sort of person. But yeah, that was his passion. He loved to watch how things are made, videos on Instagram and YouTube. So yeah, as I said, dig away at the sorts of questions that they're maybe unlikely to get from most people, and enjoy the conversation that flows. So, John, I think that's about all that I have to say on that. We've had our share of football already with the junior reps, which has been a good thing. For those people who haven't been watching the junior reps, or maybe for whatever reason haven't followed our live blogs, naughty if you haven't followed our live blogs of the junior reps. But we've had 3 rounds of trials for the Eels. We had the trials before Christmas against the Sharks, where the Eels were really far too strong for the Sharks in that first round of trials. We had the round of trials against the Bulldogs, and the Dogs, we shared the spoils with the Dogs in that one. That was a couple of weeks ago. And then last weekend was the traditional trial games against the Panthers at Windsor. And the girls played on the Friday night, and both of the teams were successful. This time the Lisa Fiola were probably a little bit more impressive than the Tasha Gale team in their victory. It was a little bit, the Tasha Gale result was a little bit closer, although I think the Tasha Gale were well in control. The Lisa Fiola team put on 40 points. I think it was something like 40-16. Got a couple of really fast outside backs there, John.
Can never be upset by some speed in the back line. That's always a great asset to have in any prospective team, whether it's juniors or seniors.
Yeah, a bit of work to do in defence, I think, across the board there. And then with the boys, they played Saturday morning into early Saturday afternoon. Harold Matts impressed this time. They'd lost the previous week to the Bulldogs, but they accounted for the Panthers. And Hayden Bell, I thought, was outstanding in that trial, John. Like, yeah. He was really, really good. A lot of the good things were coming from his work out there. But the SG ball, it's only a trial, but they did lose to the Panthers. One of the things we said last year with the SG ball was they will win this comp, and the only thing that will stop them winning the comp is themselves.
Yeah.
And that was pretty much how I saw the trial, which was the Panthers won it on the back of Eels' errors. The Eels have got a bit to do with their defence on their left edge. It was a little bit brittle. I think the Panthers probably scored, they must have broken the line on that left side for maybe all bar one or two of their tries. Just, yeah, I can't recall if there was any one person at fault, but it was just that the Eels' defence wasn't functioning.
Yeah.
Like it should.
Chris is in chat, good mate Chris there, saying that they got a bit of a talking to at the end of the game, sort of laying down the law and letting them know that the result. But this is me now interpreting. He didn't add the last words, but classic end of game talk, like dressed down about the way in which they perform. So not surprising, because the standards internally there will be very high. Like there is a lot of rotation in the team because of players that are either going to graduate or have already been deemed to be too important to just play at SG ball level. We're seeing them train with the first grade team right now. So a lot of turnover there, but the standard's still very high. And we saw against the Bulldogs how good that team can be. But yeah, by the same token, it's literally a week is a long time rugby league, isn't it? Because you go from being on top of the world to being your own worst enemy. And thankfully it's only trials. So you are, cleaning up all those little rough ends and sort of sprung up corners in there. But yeah, it's a good reminder, a timely reminder for them.
John, I still thought that the pack was very strong. Jackson Coyner, just he's a talent, John. Stephen Nunn had some of those near unstoppable moments when he just put the ball under the arm and just tore into the defence. Look, there was some really, really good moments where it looked like they're stringing some great attack together, but you'd see a pushed pass or, just things that you'd like to think won't actually happen once the competition starts. That that particular pass was only thrown because it was a trial game, or there wasn't the urgency to fall on a ball because it was only a trial game. Whatever the case may be, it was. I could imagine that the coach wouldn't have been happy with what he saw as their final warm-up game for the competition. Based on that, I'd say Penrith are going to be better than they were last year in SG ball, but whether they're going to be finalists this year, because they weren't last year, but you'd normally expect the Panthers to be finalists. They've just been atrocious over the last, not atrocious, but they haven't been as strong.
Relative to the standards that they would have for their squads, yes, it's been a bit of a drop-off, but a reminder that they had literally a golden age of juniors come through, and it's what essentially bankrolled their four-peat at the NRL level, alongside some very clever and prudent recruitment. But yeah, the swings and roundabouts, the sine curve, as it were, of junior development means that you're going to have a crescendo up here, and maybe it rolls through for a long time, but you're going to trend downwards as well. It's happened to Parramatta Eels in the past. We happen to look like we're coming towards a crescendo of our own, and it's too early to count those chickens while they will hatch, but it is a very good crop of kids coming through for the Eels. But on that note, Warren was asking, did Coyner have the pink headgear on? Pink headgear would have either been Steve Nunn.
It was Stephen Nunn in the pink headgear, and the red headgear.
Yes, red headgear, yeah.
Is Katarik.
Yes, Nick Katarik, yeah.
Yeah. So Jackson, I think, was he playing in the back row?
Yes, I believe he should have been. Or maybe he had a more loose assignment at prop if that was the case. But he was playing.
Yeah, it could have been, but he has been playing prop, but he's a completely different build to those players.
Yeah,
he's sort of like a taller, leaner build, and what's interesting watching him play is when he's been playing at prop, he can be playing in tight, but he also, I think there was one where he ran the ball a bit wide to set up a play for a try out on the left wing. So he's a very impressive player. Very impressive player. So, and the grandson of Mel McMartin too, who just recently passed away.
Yep.
So, look, there's certainly some talent there. There's a little bit of debate from supporters about how strong the Harold Matts team is. I think they're finalists based on what I've seen in previous years and what I'm seeing there. Maybe the depth I'm not too sure about, but I think some of their star players like Hayden Bell will make a difference. Will carry them a long way. The SG ball, I'm going to go with our comment last year as the probable outcome for them as well. They've got to avoid being their own worst enemies. But we're going to have our a special preview podcast. We'll try to get it organised with AJ next week, and we'll also look to record with our good mate Steve Georgalis, who's ready to sit down with us as a bit of a season preview and an opening round preview. So stand by for that one coming your way. John, just moving on with the last thing for the Parramatta Eels is an NRLW signing.
Yes, as you could have gathered from the podcast title, Eels Layne, not just in Parramatta at the home of the Eels, Parramatta Leagues Club there, but also a huge pickup there for the NRLW, mate.
Yeah, to get an extremely experienced international halfback from rugby union, it's going to make it interesting to see what decision Steve Georgalis makes about where he plays.
Yeah, scrum half in union, so that traditionally would be a number 9 in rugby league. But scrum halves also do have some playmaking responsibilities beyond just distributing the ball out there. So they might see a broader skill set there for her. I don't know. Does she? Because Ruben Cherrington was very well established at number 9 for the Eels. But they also have a couple of playmakers in Pearson and Toi Hiku in the halves that have clicked at times but haven't perhaps taken that collective step together. That they might explore opportunities there. Phil saying putting Rachel Pearson on notice, that could be on the cards. I think that if the Eels are to contend with the likes of the Roosters and the Broncos, they need dominant playmaking from not just one player, but from 2 or 3. And they've got Abby Church, they've got Ruben Cherrington, Cassie Toahiku has been like a real wild card. She's been a prodigious talent and has been trying to learn to play 5/8. While Pearson has had some good games, but also had a bit of a struggle with form last year. It is now last year. So can Layne Morgan be that missing link for the Parramatta Eels?
It's interesting, John, because I'm on board with that thought that it's putting Pearson on notice. Rachel started off this season strongly last year, then had a real struggle with form throughout those middle rounds of the NRLW, and I think her drop-off in form coincided with the Eels' drop-off in form. And then for the last couple of games of the year, I thought Rachel played very strongly, and again the Eels lifted accordingly as well. So we can't afford those sort of fluctuations in what is a shortened season in the NRLW. I think we need greater impact in the halves. Having Toi Hiku back from injury obviously strengthens the team, but will Steve Georgalis look at her as a 5/8, or will he look at her out in the centres this coming year? I don't know. I mean, that's perhaps an option that he might consider moving her, but I think I'm not going to be surprised if we end up with Layne Morgan at halfback and Cassie Toahiku at 5'8". I think that happens.
I know she's a scrum half from Union, but again, they do have those expanded responsibilities depending on the sort of role you play. and Ruben was so good for us at dummy half. So it's kind of hard to see her getting dislodged. She is a young and ascending player. Had a bit of bad luck of injuries, obviously, but when she's been on the park, she's been tremendous, especially last season. So, yeah, if you were looking at someone that could be the odd person out here, Rachel Pearson. Look, Cassie Tawahiko has the flexibility to go back into the centres or wing or, fullback, pending something happened to Abby or whatnot. Like, there is that kind of flexibility. But I do think they probably persevere with Cassie at 6 and probably look at Layne as, they're 7 here.
Yeah, look, I think so too. John, have we got any questions there from chat?
Chris asked, did Beckett play 6 as well? Yeah, Beckett, by her trade in the juniors, was a half, but then converted to play a bit of 9 for the Eels more recently in senior football. But, has definitely got a history of playing 7, more than 6, but, obviously that is somewhat interchangeable in the modern game. What do we got here? Phil saying that Pearson's a great organiser and a good kicking game, or has a good kicking game, but lacks the speed. Yeah, that is really the crux of it for Rachel, is that fundamentally she's got a lot of really good core skills. But you look at some of the other dominant halves, in particular, halves like Taryn Aiken and whatnot, and their speed is game-changing. And it's the same thing with Mitchell Moses. Nathan Cleary as well. For as well-rounded as Cleary is, he's a phenomenal athlete too, and he has great speed attacking the line. Not Mitchell Moses speed, but great running speed. And that's what you want from a premier half. So, yeah, going to be a good contest there. Neil says I wouldn't be moving Cassie to left centre for Rory there. Yeah, I think Rory's got left centre under lock and key there. Right centre, and then you got you got some interesting decisions to make in the back line, but I think some players do pick themselves. And Neil saying that Rachel's a far better football player than athlete. Yeah, I think that's probably the best way of putting it. She is a very good football. Obviously got a very good noggin for the game and can read the game pretty well. But her reactability with just the athleticism does maybe falter her ability to win or compete consistently now that the game's getting even faster.
I wonder, John, whether she's at the stage where the Eels will be considered transitioning her into a coaching role.
Oh, I think that's absolutely on the cards if that's something she would like to pursue, yeah. With, I assume, expansions coming against the NRLW, so there could be an opportunity for her to continue to play if she wants to. But she does seem to have the making, like a lot of the stuff that would make a good coach in her ability to understand and express the game. So, yeah, I think that's absolutely on the cards. Chris saying that he reckons Layne will probably play 6 or 7. That seems to be where seems to be pointing. Warren's asking, is Ella Carlisle re-signed in some sort of way? She was unreal in Harvey Norman Women's Premiership. That'd be your domain, Craig, but she was very good in reserve grade last year, and certainly was one of the players that you really had earmarked as a potential progression candidate coming into this year.
Yeah, I don't have any news on her. I was, as you said there, John, I thought she was one of the outstanding players in that Harvey Norman team. She could, some of the tries that she ignited or scored herself. The Eels unfortunately missed the finals, and it was almost
what an insane scenario that was to miss the finals and where they went. Just like 1 in a dozen sort of seasons right there. To win as many games as they did and still miss the finals was crazy.
And especially in the way they did in that last game where they were up by some margin in that game, and then ended up surrendering a substantial lead and a place in the finals, all in the one collapse.
Yeah.
So they were ultra consistent. They performed some Houdini escapes as well through the season. But again, a young team and develop, and as a young team,
it was a very young squad.
Really learning. So I'm sure they'll do that much better again this year. So because this last year was an improvement on their first year in the Harvey Norman Women's Premiership. So I think it'll be a continued step forward in 26. John, if there's no more questions in chat, then we're just about ready for your musical interlude.
Yeah, we tend to keep it pretty Parramatta orientated for my interludes, but I haven't been backwards and been forwards about my fandom for my Seahawks, and You've been sort of riding alongside me as a passenger before my rants about the American football and the NFL. But our mutual mate, Marcus, on the SGA, has been riding vicariously with me via text message with the Seahawks in the last couple of weeks. And we had a very manic Monday as the Seahawks took on traditional rivals, the LA Rams, in the what was essentially it is the grand final qualifier, but in America, in the NFL, they've got more pageantry for the the qualifiers there because they've got the historical separate leagues. It's like if the Super League and the NRL got back together, but then also looked at the separate parts of them and had Super League teams on one side, NRL teams on the other side, and they met in the big dance. Therefore, the grand final qualifier was also a championship. And the Seahawks, I was about to say the Eels, the Seahawks, it was an absolute humdinger of a game, Craig. It's the third meeting between the two teams because they are divisional rivals. They play each other home and away in the regular season, and they were kind of destined to meet. It just always felt like they were destined to meet in this game, and it did not disappoint. Seahawks prevailing 31-27. Very stressful, very stressful, mate. But when you knock over a rival like that, and then essentially the Seahawks' path to the Super Bowl has been like if the Eels beat the Bulldogs and then Manly in consecutive weeks to get to the grand final, where they meet. Now they meet the Melbourne Storm or the Sydney Roosters. Carl, yes, the taunting penalty did nearly blow it up. That was a pretty crazy potential turning point in the game. But whenever you knock over back-to-back storybook rivals and get to the big dance, it's a bit of sweet victory, mate. So this is a song that's got a very interesting genesis because it was made popular in SpongeBob SquarePants of all things. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's a cartoon, like I said, Saturday morning cartoon sort of deal that's been around for ages. But it's a bit of was it 80s or 90s sort of power rock, and it was 97. There you go, 97. Written by David Glenn Eiley, who has been a lead singer for such prominent bands as Sorcery, Jafria, Dirty White Boy, noted
household names,
noted household bands, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame sort of stuff. But yeah, this one really summed up the feelings on Monday afternoon after the Seahawks managed to squeeze by in an absolute banger.
I see this differently, John. I see this as a Baywatch with them running along the beach.
But yeah, an absolute.
Am I wrong? Am I the only one that sees it that way?
An absolute banger of a game, and the 3-game split between the Seahawks and the Rams across the season was Rams winning the first game, Seahawks winning the next 2, and I think the total points differential was 85-88 in favour of the Seahawks. So you can see how close those games were. And now the Seahawks get a chance to meet another adversary in the New England Patriots who the Seattle kind of broke their own hearts in Super Bowl 49 way back in 2014 with the intercept, the play, Malcolm Butler making a pick on the goal line because Brandon Browner, a former Seahawk who was playing for the Patriots, identified the pass play in the final moments of the game and clued them into how to counter it. So yeah, a chance for righting that wrong, and yeah, it's a week and a half away now because they play 2 weeks after. But it's very cool. Like the Seahawks have been a real big part of my sports fandom now, Craig. They're sort of grown alongside the Parramatta Eels. Well, the Eels are definitely number one. I'm pretty heavily invested in the Seahawks now, and it's a lot of fun to see them do a rebuild. Not too dissimilar to Parramatta. Mike McDonald's come in year 2, defensively orientated head coach. And he, again, talking to Marcus, we sort of agree that obviously not 1-to-1, but there are similar traits between what he and Jason Riles have done. And certainly you want to see, if the Eels get to the grand final this year, in the year 2 of Jason Riles is around, you'd be very happy. You'd take that.
You mean when the Eels get
true. We'll pull off the double. Seahawks Super Bowl, Parramatta Eels, NRL Premiership. But yeah, it's and Carl's got the good NFL commentary in here. Yeah, I agree. McVay's clock management absolutely killed them. Couple of ordinary timeouts. So yeah, and look, Seahawks will be favoured in the big dance for sure, but the Patriots, they always find a way to be, they're the Patriots, they're the evil empire. So they had 20 years of dominance under Belichick and Brady, and they went away for less than a decade. Now they're back. Chris is not. Yeah, sorry, Chris. I won't talk too much more about the NFL, but the Seahawks.
I was just going to, John. I was just going to suggest that after the Super Bowl's over, that you and Marcus and Carl can do an instant reaction.
Get all the NFL boys on the podcast, yeah. But yeah, not next Monday, the Monday after will be the big dance, Seahawks versus Patriots, and yeah, you can bet your $1 I'll be watching that one and having the heart in the mouth, seeing how they go. But it's going to be a lot of fun. The rebuild under Mike McDonald, again, not too dissimilar from what Jason Riles is doing at Parramatta, and I think those two timelines converging would be fantastic this year.
Yeah, John. NRL news, there's not a huge amount floating around at all. I did notice that Wynn Stadium down at Wollongong is slated for redevelopment that's also alongside the entertainment centre that is attached to the stadium down there. And I had a look at some of the plans there. Hard to tell from some of the artists' impressions that you get at this stage about what the stadium will look like. But I've only been to Wynn Stadium at Wollongong once, and I think that was back in about 2017 from memory. And I quite enjoyed the fan experience there. It was I was way back in the Western stand, like right up the very top of the Western stand, which wasn't ideal, but the view was great, and I actually enjoyed the fact that the part of that view was looking out over the ocean as well. It's quite a unique ground for rugby league in that regard, but they're a team that's got two home grounds, the Dragons.
And obviously that's the I'm not sure you can say blessing, the blessed curse of being a joint venture is you do have the dual sort of ancestral grounds, don't you? And it's always difficult to juggle. And I think what would you say is the general sentiment, that they should commit to Wollongong? Is that probably the prevailing sentiment?
I think they should, John, from the perspective that you've got the Sharks that are down there in that St. George region.
Similar catchment, yeah.
Similar catchment area. Then again, I look at that ground that the Sharks play out of, and it's great.
Let's not segue there. It is, yeah.
But you know what? Like, Cogra's not a great ground either. It really isn't. It's and you've got, like, even to the point where they've got to have the padding on the fence down near the corner, down near the corners, because it wasn't built for that configuration of a rugby league field. It was like, it's got that oval shape because it had multitude of uses, and it's just not a great ground. I mean, they probably improved that about as much as they can without really digging up.
Like they pushed it to the limits of improvement, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. It's not the worst ground, but I just feel strongly about grounds that have hills. I just think, look, I enjoyed going and sitting on a rugby league hill when I was a young bloke, when I was a teenager, because that's all they were back then. Virtually every rugby league ground was 90% hill, 5 to 10% a stand. I mean, Cumberland Oval was typical of that, a 500-seat stand in a messy paddock that you could squeeze 20,000 people.
Yeah, like there was a rustic charm when you're younger and you don't appreciate the finer things like having a seat in life. But it's not just rugby league. Just sports fandom's moved on in general, I think, and then there is a baseline standard, especially when it's not just about rugby league. It's about Australia and their ability to host events, like World Cups, like Olympics and whatnot, and having those amenities and facilities up to date, I think goes a long way towards being able to not just help rugby league, but help sports in general in Australia. So, yeah, I I do agree. Like I said, rustic charm, and there's obviously a lot of rose-colored memories for the hills of the stadiums of yore. But I would like to see a modernisation or maybe some sort of consolidation if you can't modernise your facilities into the ones we do have. Like, again, not to harken on Cronulla or Leichhardt, but there are much better, much more modern facilities that they could be using. At Allianz, at Accor, not that you want to share our stadium, but it's already being shared. So let's just put it out there at CommBank. And obviously, you wouldn't put Cronulla on CommBank. That's not the point here geographically. But you do have the likes of Canterbury and the Tigers and the Panthers making use of CommBank alongside Parramatta. So why can't the Sharks use a stadium like Allianz?
Yeah, absolutely. And if you think about it, like rugby league, the NRL is trying to take rugby league to the world in taking those games to America to showcase that. But it's a horrible showcase if the televised product is at a ground where there's people sitting on grass watching it in this day and age. Look, I come back to Leichhardt Oval, and you look at the money that's being spent on that there, and it's still primarily going to have the majority of people housed on a hill there. It barely, with an extra stand at one end, it barely comes up to early 1980s standard. In all seriousness,
yeah.
That's what most grounds were aiming to be like in the early 80s. Like that was a decent ground in the 1980s that would have a couple of stands and a big hill. And I get that the Tigers fans love it. There's the nostalgia, there's the history, there's the deep affection for the ground. But come on. I mean, look, that's their home ground. If they want to sit on those facilities, well, I guess so be it. But I think there has to be a standard for the NRL in that regard. So when I'm not sure how that's going to that hill is going to be impacted. Is it going to be some extra seating so that's minimised? It looks like they're going to extend one of the stands around a little bit into that hill area.
It's going to be kind of not too dissimilar from the Four Pines or Brookie upgrades. It looks like, not obviously 1-to-1, but the same sort of energy.
So anyway, that's the like I as I said, I gave a bit of a thumbs up in my one experience down there at Wynn Stadium. Not the travel back, John.
No, the parking and the travel there. Obviously as a non-local viewer, Sydney-bound traffic can be very rough.
Oh, and they had one of the main arterial roads out of Wollongong was closed on that particular day for roadworks. So they've got a major football game on, and they close the road for roadworks at the time that the football was finished. So it was open when I was arriving. It was being closed at night for around the time that the game was finished. So everyone was going via the Bulli Pass, and it took and because the car caught on fire as well with how slow the traffic was trying to get out of Wollongong. And
we got the connect and chat for you, by the way, 60s. Phil said you can park at his place next time. So if you're going to go to the Gong, we'll have to get you in touch with Phil there. A couple of stadia.
Actually, I didn't have trouble parking that time because I parked in I think it was a Masonic Lodge that was just around the corner from the stadium itself, and it had just opened up for parking as I drove towards it, and it was like they put the sign out as I was coming along, and it was like $10 for parking. So boom, straight in there, and it was like a 3-minute walk or something to the ground. So that aspect wasn't bad, but getting home at like 2:30 in the morning from on a Sunday night into Monday morning game was not ideal. So John, the only other bit
I've got a couple of things on notice. I'll run you through, but just on Stadia, we have a couple of points from chat. Scott was asking, with Henson Park. Is there a reserve grade trial there soon? I'm not sure if you're abreast of the New South Wales Cup situation for their trials.
Is that being run as part of the NRL trial? Because the NRL trial is at Henson Park. So
let me just see if Bar TV's got anything organised. Where is the knock-on effect New South Wales Cup? Do they have their trials up here? No, it's grand finals. That's round 1. They're not advertising any trials here. So maybe though. We'll have to take that one on notice and get back to you there.
Look, I'm going to suggest to you that my thought would be that it's part of that day of trials, because they're on a Sunday, are they not? The Henson Park. Is that the Sunday trial?
That might be the Sunday trial. Do we have our preseason things? Telstra Premiership preseason challenge. It is a Sunday. Yeah, it is a Sunday. So.
Is that a double header then?
I think that was my gut feel, was it was a double header too, but I've got the Parramatta things here. The other thing we can talk about while I'm looking was from Chris, who was pointing out that the Bears, while they're obviously playing primarily out of Perth, do have part of their pitch was bringing again the North Sydney Oval, and for the North Sydney faithful, and having a sort of a foundation game in that regard. But if we're talking about amenities and facilities, North Sydney Oval was probably not up to code, because Chris was saying that it's got a lack of disability access and whatnot. So, yeah, I wonder if they'll get some sort of a small package to update their amenities and facilities there.
You would think so, because look, it's a quaint cricket ground, a picturesque cricket ground, but as far as watching rugby league on that field, and I've gone there countless times to watch rugby league over the years, and I've attempted to watch from their hill. I've attempted to watch from different stands there, and I'm yet to find somewhere where I had a decent view. Yeah.
It's as far as football grounds go, it's a pretty solid cricket ground, and it's probably about the best you can say about it. Like, I know, again, a lot of rose-coloured, not so much from Parramatta fans, but rose-coloured, rose-tinted goggles when it comes to how great North Sydney Oval was. There's been some fantastic Women's State of Origins games there with the sort of growth of the game going back a few years, but even then it's already outstripped North Sydney Oval as a venue, and they're probably moving on to bigger and better things. So yeah,
I think I've seen one or two junior reps matches and maybe one or two lower grades there in recent years.
A prospective comment of the day from MM there: if there's no disabled facilities, how'd the Bears get in there to play? How did the Bears get in there to play? The Bears obviously have a bit of a checkered past when it comes to on-field performances. But, yeah, that's a savage one. Not bad. Yeah, you've got some international stuff to go to, and then I'll sort of run down the stuff that I forgot to brief you on, because there is a few happenings in the code that are probably worth quickly going over.
Yep. So the only thing I was going to mention was interesting to see former Eels coach Brad Arthur being interested and approached by the England Rugby League to gauge his interest in being the England coach. And Willie Peters has apparently also thrown his hat into the ring that he'd be interested in the job as well. But BA is definitely interested, and it looks like from news today that Willie Peters wants to be considered for the role also. I think coaches such as those two can only help to bring the standard of the English Rugby League team up, even though I think the gig is only like about a month or something like that.
So it would be in addition to Brad's coaching duties at Leeds, right? It wouldn't be in place of. It's not
giving up a club coaching role. They will take on a club coach to coach the England team and have responsibilities for about a month.
Interesting.
So that's how that works. So, John, you said you've got a few bits and pieces from the NRL.
So, good news, bad news, interesting news, I suppose. Start off with the bad news. Paul Jamin Jolliffe has ruptured his ACL. really solid forward there for the Gold Coast Titans. Obviously a blow to their roster. Be interesting to see if they revisit maybe something like Ryan Madison. I don't know if they will, but that is a loss to their forward pack. Jolliffe is a very good player, very solid player there for the Gold Coast franchise. But yeah, bad news for him there. I suppose the good news is that ACLs are not the career disruptors that they once were, but still sucks. It's a terrible time of the year to do an injury like that.
Yeah, absolutely. You're gone for the year. That's it. So, yeah.
We got interesting news. Can you call it an exodus? I don't know, but we got another player going to the 15-man code. Angus Crichton returning to his roots there. He was a dual league union boy coming through the ranks, and he's signed a 2-year deal with Rugby Australia, eyeing off that World Cup, I believe. The World Cup is it this year or next? I can't keep track.
I think it's 2 years. So he plays this year with the Roosters, goes to Union next year, and then I think it's 27.
27 is the World Cup, yeah. So he gets half a year of Union under his belt before going to the World Cup, prospectively. Look, Crichton's got a history of that code. The Roosters, though, they're bleeding a lot of players. And they've got, like us, they had a very good SG ball group coming through in 2025 there, which will help, give them a chance to reload. But yeah, got prospectively a lot of cap space there. I don't think AJ's in chat right now to give us an outlook on what they're doing there. But if he is, he can throw in his 2 cents because it'll be worth a bit more than 2 cents here. But yeah, it's soccer this year, or football if you want to call it the traditional name there. So thank you, MM.
The Roosters with their academy have been doing some pretty solid things in pathways. I think Dean Feeney's been very involved in that.
Yes, for a number of years. Yeah,
the Roosters. Good bloke, yeah, great bloke, Dean Feeney. We obviously had benefited from his time at the Eels. He ran the Para House. Was coaching the NYC team. And as I said, just a good man.
I guess Angus would play blindside, number 8, outside centre. I guess they wanted to use the batting ram. He's 187. He's nowhere near big enough to play second row. I would guess blindside maybe, but I don't know how much the metagame's changed from, because there's a lot more big forwards in general. Because the number 7 used to be the small, fast, ultra fit forward that would always contest.
So are you talking about the sort of player that when I played was called breakaway?
Yeah, exactly, the breakaway.
Are they called flankers now?
Yeah, it used to be open side, blind side as well. So, but you saw the All Blacks really introduce some power running number 6s in that transitional era post late 2000s at number 6. So, I guess he could play there. I don't know what chat thinks on that one. What else we got?
Okay, just while we're just touching on rugby union, what about that fight?
Oh, between Asofa Solomono and
no. It was Scott Young. Was it? I'm trying to think of his first name. Sam is his father. Sam Scott Young is his father. Angus Scott Young and his teammate. They got stuck into it at training, and I think Angus Scott Young ended up with a facial fracture. And his teammate that did it to him copped a 2-game suspension. From
Jesus! I'm looking at the footage right now. Good Lord!
Yeah. I mean, they didn't muck around.
That was
got him on the ground. He's just thumping him.
Hammer fist to the head on the ground. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
I mean, what? They don't show that much passion playing the game. Let's send it at training. I've never seen, I've seen little flare ups.
Yeah, you see pushes. You see the sort of open hand shove to the hand to the face. Sometimes tempers will flare up when you're going hammer and tongs at training. Obviously, you don't want to see players getting to that point, but it happens. You're talking about 115 kilos of prime testosterone and fueled emotions. It's going to overfold points, but that was straight up MMA on the ground savaging a guy. Good Lord.
Yeah. I don't know how. See, and it's even different. There's been plenty of stories over the years where players have had stand-up fist fights, right? That's not stand-up. That fella's jumped on top of him, and I don't know what's preceded it.
There was talk of a racial slur that's been denied. So obviously there's something that's caused the boil over. But
I think the racial slur has actually come, allegedly, from the father of Angus Scott Young, because he's called him a fresh off the boat.
Oh yeah, the old FOB.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, and he of course is saying no, that's isn't in his time, that wasn't ever used in a derogatory sense. It was something that even his teammates would call themselves, that sort of thing. But
we've got established precedent that the subset of people calling themselves that thing is not always acceptable for other people calling that thing. Like,
especially if they're inviting them to a fight and they use that term.
Yeah.
They're hardly saying, "Hey, good friend, would you like to come and enjoy some fisticuffs with me?"
Yeah, Neil, it was real ground and pound stuff there. Fractured the eye socket, crazy. So I did not see that until you brought it up. That is crazy stuff. But yeah, so Angus Crichton, the rugby union. I saw Josh in chat saying that I think number 12, so outside centre, is the or inside centre. Sorry, 13's outside, 12's inside. That's a bit of a surprise because 12 is usually the second fly half in that regard, but maybe the Wallabies trying to zig when the rest of the competition.
Well, Sammy Burgess played centre, didn't he, when he went to Union?
It would have been 13 though, right? I mean, outside centre is traditionally the battering ram. Back in the golden day of the Wallabies, they had Sterling Mortlock out there doing that, who was a big unit for a back. But yeah, I mean, I suppose good luck to him. The Wallabies certainly need all the luck they can get. For all the talk of a resurgence that was happening in 25, they then got absolutely pantsed in their tour of Europe. Pantsed. Humbled by Italy. As someone with Italian origins on my father's side, that is embarrassing. So, how the mighty have fallen, rugby union in Australia. But on that note, let's keep going. There was some other news. So we've had the bad news for Jamin there. We've had the interesting news there with Crichton. The drama here, and it involves a club that we're entangled up with at the moment, Craig. And it's also a contractual dispute, I suppose. Well, not quite a contractual dispute, but Cooper Bye sort of broke onto the scene in 25, late or in the 19's Origin game. We had a cracker, and then late in the year when he debuted for the Titans, and they earmarked him as a building block player. But it looks like Melbourne might have got under their guard. Now there's a real contested fight to try and keep him on the Gold Coast, because apparently he's all but agreed to terms of Melbourne, and now the Titans underneath their new coaching structure and GM too, because Scotty Sattler's their GM, right? Alongside the new coach there. They're fighting tooth and claw, hammer and nail to try and keep one of the best young players from leaving their club.
So was he available to speak to?
It's not a drama insofar as they've done something dirty, but they've gotten under their guard, I think, and I believe he was eligible to be talked to or spoken to, at least as far as I can ascertain. So we'll assume that it was all in good faith.
Well, yeah, I mean, you'd say in this instance, you'd say fair play to them, and they're getting like a second generation player.
Yes, obviously Cooper's father, Marcus, was he a foundation player for the Storm, or did he come shortly after their foundation?
I have it in my head it's shortly after.
Marcus Bye. I feel like it was shortly after. Marcus Bye. What does the old Wikipedia say? He joined Melbourne in 98.
Oh, that'd make him foundation, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
There you go. That's the years, mate. The years turn into a blur, an absolute blur. So
yeah, there's now a big tussle to keep Cooper on the Gold Coast. I don't know if you saw much of him, Craig, but he looked very good in the 19's Origin game. Very good for he played for PNG, I believe, at the end of the year, and looked sharp there. Didn't look bad in his NRL time as well. And for Hannay, it'd be, it wouldn't be the first coach to come in and lose a star young player, just the nature of the game, but it would be, definitely a gut blow for him, because that would be earmarking Cooper as a real building block, especially because there's a lot of doubts about Tino's future there. And, you want to have someone to build around. And they obviously want to keep Tino and keep Cooper as well, but there is a lot of scenarios where they have to just pick one. And if they lose Tino, they'd be all in on Cooper, obviously. But Melbourne might have stolen the march on him here.
Yeah. So, look, I think it's going to be very hard for them to hold on to him.
Yeah. Melbourne's got all sorts of cap space. Obviously, the draw of being one of the game's top consistent performers. Incumbent grand finalists. Obviously, they didn't win the big dance, but an incumbent grand finalist and should be there or thereabouts in 2026. Although
footsteps of his dad.
And again, like you said, there is literally a familial tie there. So there is a lot of legacy there for the Cooper and Marcus connection there. So be surprised if he stays on the Gold Coast. It's a shame for the Titans. They obviously, it's tough. Like there's all sorts of conjecture, theory about the Titans or the location of the Gold Coast as an opportune or inopportune sort of venue for rugby league. But the reality is they're also just they get feasted on by teams like Melbourne and Brisbane. All their blue chip talent invariably seems to go in one-way transactions, and they did get one on Melbourne with Tino, but now it's coming to a 4 as well with him potentially moving somewhere else. On that note, what else we got here? I'm not sure if there's too much else to talk about. Some preseason, things are tough. Blah blah blah. Chevy Stewart's done something silly at Norvies. I am stunned.
Who's he with now?
He's still contracted to Canberra, I believe, and they haven't. There's been no, as far as I can tell, been no changing of that. But even though there was a lot of talk about them potentially shopping him, I saw a comment in chat. Was it Daily Telegraph? They ranked our forward pack 9 of 17, which I don't think is egregious. I think they had the comment was it 1 Roosters at 1, but Eels 9 of 17. Mid pack. We don't have a lot of star power in our pack. We got a lot of industrious and up and coming players, and in 12 months' time maybe the pack could be more fated. But I don't think that's. I do tend to think that we get underrated here and there, but I feel like a mid-table pack is not unfair. I think on that sort of prospectus, our backline probably rated a little bit lower with the loss of Zac Lomax, but you got to think our spine rate's pretty highly coming into this year.
And John, you know what? Let them rate us as low as they want.
Oh, let them sleep on us for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. As you say,
I
don't
don't want to bring up NFL talk again, but the Seahawks were rated, in a 32-team comp, they were ranked 19 or 20 coming into the preseason for power rankings, and were ranked last in their division of 4, in a division that featured the Arizona Cardinals. You don't understand what I'm saying, Craig. The Arizona Cardinals. That is like the West Tigers of the NFL. So they put us behind them, and look where it got them. Oh, and Jamie says, do you see the cooked best of that is pure engagement. It has to be engagement bait, Jamie. Like they have to do it on purpose. Do a dumb 1 to 17 just to get fans rolled up to say, what are you doing? Like, how is this player playing center? How is that player on the bench? Because it's either that or they've consulted an AI to name a random team. Because some of the 1 to 17s, including the NRL.com one, I don't know if you saw it, Craig, but it had some real whiz-banger picks. And like I said, it just feels like pure engagement bait. Like they want you to get riled up and upset about, you're not picking your best front row combinations, or there's a weird pick in the halves.
Look, I know that their Parramatta one probably had about 4 errors in it. But is there one there that was absolutely stupid? Across the clubs? Like, what was the stupidest selection or non-selection?
While I'm looking for that, we got... Oh, there it is. So we got a couple of questions. Chris Hill asking, will we see more time from Sam Tuivasa this year? You got to think his playing time stocks are on the rise. He looked very good for a rookie, and I think that they'll lean on him more in 26.
Yeah, you know what? I honestly believe Jason Riles has a selection headache in front of him. I really do, because Charlie Geimer, for mine, has been one of the stars of the preseason. Mm-hmm. And then you throw in Matt Dury.
I was about to say, equally, Matt Dury's been a standout every time I've read your reports or the time I was in attendance.
Matt Dury's been a revelation.
Yeah.
Out there. Like He truly has. I've never seen him in better shape. I've never seen him as confident as he appears to be out there. And he's what's always let him down, in my opinion, is that he would get injuries at the most inopportune times. Every time, Ray Stone was similar. Every time it seemed like he was getting a roll on in terms of getting matches under the belt, there'd be an injury.
Yeah, just something to derail momentum. Exactly.
Yeah. And Ray Stone used to have that with us as well. Every time he'd establish himself in the first grade.
Stoney was his own worst enemy in that regard. He had no regard for his body. Is the regard note there?
Well, you know what? Matt Dury's a bit like that, the way he would hit the lines that he'd run. So he'd always go at 1,000,000 miles an hour at a line. I think they've added a bit of subtlety to his play in this preseason as well, John. So, look, in all honesty, the ones that I'm absolutely certain about, Gideon Katonga he's a certain selection. Hopgood's a certain selection. Williams is a certain selection. Jack DeBellin's a certain selection. Junior's certain. Dylan Walker's certain. Now, both dummy halves are certain. To me,
that's the sticking point with the NRL.com list, which we'll get to shortly. But yes, there's only a couple of spots, isn't there?
There's like 2 spots, and I reckon about 5 or 6 players fighting it out for 2 spots.
Yeah,
including Sam.
Yeah, and look, I think Sam's ceiling is so high that you're almost obliged to include him based on what you saw last year. But that doesn't mean he gets guaranteed a spot, does it? It's going to be a tough contest. Speaking of contest, before we get to that team, was it Gallagher? Where was your comment, mate? I think he had a sort of gut check backline question. Where are you? I think I was looking at who misses out. Yeah. Who misses out among Kelly, Russell or Simonson in the backline from Gallagher? And this is obviously a gut check one because we haven't seen any trial form. And Kelly is still, I'd say finding his feet. He's probably past that stage now with the Lennox Head Camp. But right now, we have, obviously, Will Pennisini's locked in at right centre. But I think there's a fair case to say, well, Josh Adokar, left wing, obviously locked in too. I think it's fair to say that both the other spots, left centre, right wing, are up there for competition. Sean Russell had a fantastic year last year, but by virtue of his imminent departure to Perth, I think that Riles would certainly explore the opportunities there for someone that has a longer term reign at the club. But yeah, what's your gut check on those positions?
This is really tough. It's really tough because I've got a lot of time for every one of those 3 players. I think that Kelly might get the nod to play next to Josh Adokar. I think as a combination that that's maybe the way that it's going to fall, which then means that the other wing spot is a battle between
Russell and
Simonson and Russell. I mean, they had Brian Kelly down as a winger. Like, he'll play centre.
No, Kelly can play wing in a pinch and do a decent job, but he is primarily a centre, yes.
And
that's one of the flaws of this NRL list for sure, alongside the bench composition as well.
That's how I see it unfolding. However, I could be wrong because, see, Simonson fits that mould of being like he's possesses genuine pace, which you want out on the wing. Sean Russell was one of the most consistent players in the team last year. And I think it was being made interesting that when we signed Brian Kelly, all of a sudden we went from, well, there's no conjecture about the back line. The back line will pick itself because that's all that they're the only ones with really decent NRL experience that are there. He immediately created competition for a spot at centre, and I just have the feeling he hasn't been recruited to run around in reserve grade as waiting for being needed to play when there's an injury. So I think he's changed the game in terms of selections for the Eels in the back line.
I mean, my gut check would be Kelly left centre, Simonson right, if we're playing towards long-term prospects there. And I know things obviously changed for Bowie from being on the out of the club and being back into the in the fold. And I think also in a way,
Will Penasini,
right centre.
right centre.
I just think that's a lock. Chris Hill in chat was asking that very question. Is he really a lock given his first half issues? I just think he's got too much experience. He has his issues, but he's still only 23. I think that the club, they love what they have in Will. Or at least that's the feeling I get. Maybe you've seen otherwise. But,
and I think he was locked in for another year or
and
two.
yes, that's been one of the recurring questions is we do suspect that he is locked in long term, as opposed to the 1 year that the NRL signings portal has him in for right now. So maybe, and there was a bit of a nice PR piece on Will recently. Was it today?
Yeah.
Maybe there's something forthcoming in regards to an announcement building into the season. I don't know. That's just me spitballing. That's no mail right there.
But we're pretty sure he signed an extension last year
when he himself announced it in a presser. So not sure why it's been sat on, but it's there. Okay, let's go through this 17 quickly before there was a couple of good roster questions and points in chat that I want to get to. I think Josh and Seabass had the comments there. So NRL.com's best 17 for the Eels. Look, the 1679, no drums. It's Yongi, Pezzett, Moses, and Smith starting. I think that's pretty much everyone's 1679, unless you're a massive Joash truther over Jonah Pezzett. And we've got plenty of time for Joash, but I think you can pretty much lock Pezzett in right now. Brian Kelly, by Eels conventions, that's the left wing. Our number 2 is traditionally the left winger. Brian Kelly, I assume, on the left wing here, Adokar on the right. Will Penasini and Sean Ross on the centres.
But Adokar plays left wing.
I know. So they might just be putting Kelly on any wing, but number 2 conventionally is Parramatta's left wing. At least it has been for a while. And then in the front row, you got Junior. Obviously, we mentioned Riley there. Jermaine Hopgood starting. So no dramas in the front row. Some questions over the back line there. Brian Kelly on the wing, of course. Jack Williams and Kitiani Katonga or Gideon Katonga starting on the edges. Jack DeBell at lock forward. So those things aren't too bad. On the bench, you got Joash as a utility, Sam Tuivasa, Dylan Walker, and Luca Moretti. So no Talon De Silva. You got Brian Kelly on the wing. They're probably the 2 most egregious ones there. But again, is that engagement bait? I don't know.
I think it is. I think it's very much engagement bait. But you know what? It could just very well be that they just churned it out and the person doesn't really know too much about what they're writing.
Sports is the sports news cycle is a content machine, isn't it? Like you're constantly trying to get things out. Even with us at TCD, sometimes it's a case of you have to get this article out. You don't want to half-ass it, but then you see what's coming out in the mainstream, and it's kind of like, people are half-assing it. Not the worst 17 in most of the spots, but some dubious picks there. Look, if Talon De Silva's not in our top 17, I will be stunned. Based on your training reports, Craig, based on what we saw with Jason Riles really looking to integrate a 2 dummy half, and not just dummy half, 2 dummy halves that can play across a couple of different positions there too. Riley Smith's ability to play a small ball lock forward, or maybe Talon doing something similar and Riley do the dummy half work while Talon plays an up-tempo sort of, Brandon Smith sort of role. Really being attacking at a dummy half when the opportunity presents itself. Who knows? But you got Joash, Sam, Dylan Walker, and Luca Moretti on the bench. And right now, Luca's under a bit of an injury cloud. At least last I saw he was, Craig. So that's obviously a consideration too. But you mentioned it. You've got the competition for those final 2 or 3 spots on the bench is intense. And Matt Dury, Charlie Geimer. In this case, you've got who else is missing out there? Oh, Kelvin Tuolungi is missing out in this team list.
Yeah.
Jordan Samrani, who is probably a player that's going to be in the periphery just because, again, a victim of his own versatility, but he's going to be competing for a spot as well. So there's a stack of players, and I'm probably missing some too. So I don't want to disrespect any of the potential contenders. I'll have a quick gander. And this is also assuming that you wouldn't expect them round one, but none of the young guys make a jump. But yeah, that's probably about I think the end of the primary contenders. But there's certainly a few players that are on the outside looking in, and it's a bit rough.
Yeah, those sorts of things obviously end up sorting themselves out with injuries and suspension and what have you, and everyone basically ends up playing a role of some sort, simply because of the toll that the season takes on players.
Oh yeah.
So, but John, the way I see it, there's even going to be players who miss out on a spot in New South Wales Cup.
Oh, that's a bridge for us to cross in another podcast, because between the young players and the peripheral NRL players they've got, some good players are going to be one way or the other are going to be missing out at cup level. Get back to where was Josh's comment? Sorry, Josh, I know you were back there. What have I done? Josh, going all the way back up here, as we've had to scroll a few pages because we've been yakking that long. He says, with all these kids and Dory and Luca pushing through, does it affect the potential extension for Junior? And that's one of those things you've got to weigh up on the salary cap, isn't it? Succession planning, how much do you invest in your established vets versus the young guys coming through? It's been talk about a Junior extension for a little bit, Craig. I don't know if anything's manifesting through the old the chin waggles that you have there, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was extend Junior. Equally, I wouldn't be shocked if they chose to invest in the kids, because Jason Riles has been very pragmatic. But if they had have been successful in signing Keon, that might have impacted Junior's role going forward. But Junior becomes very much that senior player, and you could look at others, because Jack de Belin will be one of those senior players, and my feedback already is his role as a leader within the club is establishing itself quite strongly. But he's 35 going on 36, isn't he? He's not a spring chicken by any means, and obviously
no.
But because of the stuff that clouded his career, he's got less tread in the tyres than other forwards of his age. But he still is of advanced age when it comes to rugby league. So it's a fair consideration. And look, Jason Riles has form and been pragmatic, Craig. He's made some brutal cuts in the context of fan favourites and established players in the Eels. But in saying that, there is a balance, isn't there? Like, you can't just go all in on youth. You do need to temper that with some experience. And Junior is, like, you talk about core Parramatta players. You'd be hard-pressed to find a more iconic modern Eel in so far as being a forward. Obviously, there's other positions that have iconic Eels, but Junior, when you think of Parramatta Eel forwards in the modern, like the present modern era, Junior's one of the first that comes to mind. So I think as long as Riles is confident there's some juice left in the tank, and based on what we saw in 25, pretty confident there's some juice left in the tank, they'll probably work out something. But it'd obviously be reflective of his diminished role even as a leader in the squad. So that's something to consider as well. Seabass, your comment, where was it? There we go. He almost wonder if Walker doesn't get extended purely so you don't risk losing Geimer. On the other hand, I think Sam would benefit a bunch from playing 6 minutes every week in Cup. A lot of headaches, though. Yeah, this is the great selection and retention sort of shuffle that we're doing right now, isn't it, Craig? Where you've got someone like Charlie Geimer. You want him in NRL playing as many minutes as possible, but you've got that fierce competition for benches, for bench spots. And you've got someone like Dylan Walker, who is a legitimate ace in that role. Like, he's not a one-of-one, because there are, like we saw the emergence of in particular the West Tigers, the Warriors forward. That was a one-time Parramatta Eels recruit as a junior, by the way. What's his name?
The fellow, the dummy half.
The dummy half / lock that was at the Titans and went to the Warriors. But yeah, you saw his emergence. And so, Walker's not quite a one-of-one, but he's a one of two, one of three maybe. He is a very unique candidate in that role. So yeah, I think I don't know what Rolls does. I don't think there's going to be a 100% right call either way. There's going to be an opportunity cost there, but you can tell the club obviously prizes Dylan Walker's place in the team. I wouldn't be surprised if they banged out a 1 year or 2 year deal for him, but they could also choose to make the tough call and go with Charlie Garmer. I don't know. We're going to learn a lot in the first couple of months this year, I feel like, in that regard, about where players stand and what the sort of deals get ironed out ASAP. What do we got here? Oh, Jamie says Big Junes must be due for a salary cap discount. What are the rules? Is the loyalty discount predicated on concurrent years, Craig? Because if that's the case, then Junior gets hosed by going to Canberra.
Yeah. I don't know if it's concurrent, but he certainly his years at the Raiders is going to eat into whatever.
Yeah.
Is the loyalty? It's around 7 or 8 years.
It was about 8 because they've made amendments to it to make it loyalty. See if I can find the cap exemption rules. Oh, here we go. So the veteran and player allowance is for eligible players who are either developed by a club prior to becoming an NRL player or have been a top 30 player for at least 8 years at the club. Doesn't specify concurrent. I've been a top 30 player for at least 10 years across the game. So Junior would be eligible then. So he'd probably be. Is he our only player eligible if you're talking about NRL? But it does mention like developed by the club prior to becoming an NRL player. So we probably have some players that would also meet that. Like Will Penasini might meet that. He's been in the NRL since 2019. Right, 21. Sorry, 21.
Moses.
Mitch Moses. Yep. So yeah, but yeah, that means that Junior would be one of like 3 or 4 players, I guess, that would meet that then.
This is Mitch Moses because he came mid-season in 17, didn't he? So 26. If he'd come at the start of the 2017 season, this would be his 10th year. So mid-season, he starts his 10th year with us.
Yeah.
The way I see it anyway.
What else we got in here in chat before we wrap up? I saw Gallagher was giving a shout out that he has a Raz ahead of the likes of Richie Penasini and AMS. I don't think that's a bad call. I think that's probably, at least my gut feel.
Well, Artie's only a part-time
is part-time, exactly. But obviously we've mentioned it. Big year for Richie in terms of staying healthy and putting some product on the field to give the coaches a serious look at getting him into the mix. But Raz comes into 2026 with a lot of momentum. He was very good in New South Wales Cup last year, and he's certainly got that big frame that you like in a power centre, in that sort of subset of centre mould. So I think that Raz can definitely carve out a nice spot in the depth charts this year.
The advantage that Richie has is Richie's a top 30 player.
Yes, and that is handy. It is very handy.
And Raz is neither top 30
or development.
Nor development. So, and I don't even think he signed a train and trial either. So
pure second tier deal right now.
I think when it gets to the end of the preseason,
the
club has to make a call as to whether they keep him as part of the full-time squad. So that's what you're looking at.
Sort of building on what you were talking about with Artie there, Seabass asks, is Al Medina ahead of Arthur Miller Stevens now? If you're talking about pure roster sort of positioning, then right now I'd say probably. Moe's a young player that's got the luxury of being able to play flag and New South Wales Cup for the Eels and has been part of the NRL preseason, whereas Artie, like you said, Craig, is on a second-tier deal. Eels have seen him play first grade, so he's got that in his favour, but he's got to put a lot of product in the field to get back into the fold competitively.
Yeah. Look, I guess those sorts of decisions, because I think Moe's he's still eligible for Jersey Flag for one more year. I guess Nathan Kalis will be making a call on those sorts of things, because I think the plan was that Artie would be fit for round 1, and then it's, I guess, Kalo in conjunction with Riles would be selecting his cup team based on who comes back that's in the top 30 and is available to be selected in New South Wales Cup. And then does he go for younger players, or does he opt to select players from the part-time list who would be playing Ron Massey Cup? So I guess we see how that plays out.
Yeah. Neil says, so a couple of things will be AMS and Tungor. I think that's very much in the air right now, based on a couple of things, because someone's going to miss out in the NRL pending health and suspension. Russell, Simonson, Kelly, someone misses out. Like just one of them does. It's a case of not enough spots in the top grade for all three of them there. So if someone goes in there, do they play wing? Do they play centre at reserve grade level? I'm not sure. Obviously, you've got Moe Al-Madin in the mix there. There's a couple other young guys that could, with some good form in flag, also push into cup consideration. Have to wait and see. The composition of that cup team is going to be very interesting. There is some big competition in the forward pack, in the spine, and then probably a little bit skinny in the backline depth there. But Chaos is going to make a couple of calls. Are going to be very interesting. Like there's Jordan Samrani playing the centres out there. Then you've got Richard Penasini, Raz Namva, Jordan Samrani, plus one of Kelly Simonson, Russell. That's a lot of players just trying to jam in the 4 spots there. Very, very interesting. Gallagher says, cannot see Kelman missing out in the forwards. I think you're pretty much in line with that, aren't you, Craig? Yeah. You've been a big proponent of Kelman. I'm also a pretty big fan too. But he seems pretty locked in this preseason. And that's going to be key for Kelma. We know he's an offensive powerhouse. Like he's legitimately a wrecking ball, but he just needs to stay dialed in defensively. And if he can do that, then I don't know how you get like 3 starters out of 2 positions with him, Jack Williams, and Gideon, but you find a way to make it work because they give you a massive potential positive impact. What else we got? Because we'll probably start wrapping up here. We've been yapping for nearly 2 hours. Neil, I agree. Big shout out there. I think that's how you spell it as well. He mentions Rokosuka, so Lorima Rokosuka. If he can hang on to the ball, he could be one of those contenders. That is honestly the big question mark for Lorima. He is. You talk about the Eels not really having outside backs that can challenge athletically like some of the other clubs. Lorima, I think, is in that mold. If he can learn just be consistent with his handling and his finishing, the sky's the limit for him. We saw him do some insane things at the flag level last year, Craig. He came in and just we would see him in mats and ball, and he'd been good, but he came in the flag level and just had eyes popping at times, and then he dropped the ball. Like he'd do like a dead set front somersault to get over a defender and score in the corner. Yeah, and then he dropped the ball. So
he's been part of the SG ball trials this year.
So a reminder of how young he is too. So he's still got plenty of development ahead of him. But yes,
and in the weekend just gone, John, he made a couple of really spectacular takes in the in goal to defend bombs that were put up in the air. And then there was one where it was an attacking kick and he didn't get within Cooey. Neil
with the pressy words there. He makes the hard stuff look easy and the easy stuff look hard. Yeah. I think that sums up. And for those players, it's just about consistency, isn't it? It's just about smoothing out, normalising their low end while maintaining obviously all the peaks. So that'll be on the coaching staff. Lorima's got a lot of talent. And if he can figure it out, then look out. Gallagher says, surely Manor needs to be shown the door. Put him in RMC. It's been done in other clubs. Yeah, look, that's its own issue, isn't it, Gallagher? We'll see how that plays out. I understand where you're coming with that energy, mate. You want players bought in, and there's obviously, I know there's been talk about the piece being broken there, but it's hard to see Madison completely bought into the Eels, and that's going to be its own issue there. I think there's going to be some sort of part in the way. My feeling is there'll be a part in the ways at some point, Craig. I don't know what's going to happen there. You might be privy to stuff that you can't share. I don't know, but it just doesn't feel like it's a sustainable partnership, and we'll have to wait and see how that goes. But given how many we took, I mentioned it a couple of podcasts ago. It's like even with the best, most generous sort of interpretation of the partnership between the Eels and Madison now, Madison would be a potential roadblock to a young player at cup level anyway, because he's on an expiring contract. And the Eels wouldn't be looking to retain him anyway, even if things were going well, because he's of advanced age. And it'd be one of those decisions where you pick between him and Junior, and you're going to take Junior in that situation as the experienced forward. So, there is even in good faith, a fair argument to be made that you'd prioritise other players over him at cup level too. So yeah, I don't think that's too rough.
Yep.
Jamie's saying he'll go to Perth, maybe. Yeah, maybe. And yeah, the Titans Neil I think is a potential fit with. They've lost Isaac Farsulmar, as you pointed out, and Jamin Jolliffe did the ACL, so maybe. That there's obviously been some ground covered there in the past, Craig. I don't know if the two clubs will revisit it now, but the Jamin Jolliffe injury might change the playing field a little bit in that regard. Have to wait and see. On that note, I think I'll just one last check, see if there's any breaking news, mate. No, there isn't. There isn't. So there you go.
Well, there you go. We ended up being virtually spot on the 2 hours as by the time this all wraps up. Again, thank you to everyone there in chat live, because your participation in this, the questions you fire our way, that really is a big part of the podcast. So we always appreciate you tuning in and being a part of the Cumberland Throw in that regard. Stand by for news regarding the start of the season with us. We've probably got a few announcements that we're going to be making over the next couple of weeks with different aspects of not only what we're doing in terms of the Cumberland Throw itself, but some stuff that we'll be involved in. It's a couple of new content pieces too that'll be part of the Cumberland Throw this year. Matter of fact, after we finish this podcast, I've got a couple of things to talk to John about. There's stuff that keeps coming up all the time in that regard. But yes, so thank you for everyone who tuned in tonight. Thank you of course, to everyone who is listening now on delayed on our different platforms. We appreciate the support that is always there across the platforms, because we've relied on platforms outside of YouTube for so long, but now that we've got our ugly faces on YouTube, we are trying to develop it as much as possible. But we appreciate the fact that people like to have a listen in their car or while they're working around the yard or whatever the case may be. And we're very happy that you find time for us in your day. John, thank you also to you for another fine podcast. Thank you to Greg and the team at Star Partners Real Estate, Auburn, Narellan and Parramatta. When you have sponsors like Greg, whose only interest really is in helping us to get content out to fellow Parramatta supporters. Greg's a massive Eels supporter. His son, Nick, played lower grades for the Eels. And, he's just a passionate Parramatta man. And his interest really is in helping us to get content out to you. Thank you as well to our other major sponsor, Parramatta Leagues Club, the home of the Eels. Remember everything that I spoke about before with regard to those proposed changes to the Constitution that we don't want happening. We don't want to roll back things like electronic voting or postal voting or having directors meet a minimum standard. The fact that there are people out there who are trying to remove it, just have a think about what on earth their motivations must be to want to roll back standards like that. So thank you to Parramatta Leagues Club. We're looking forward to being part of their program for home matches again this season. And John, as I always say, go you mighty Eels.